Hey everyone, here's a first look at the art journal page for making using some of the supplies from the Mixed Media Inspired subscription. I'm working in my Large Dilutions art journal on a gessoed page, and I'm stamping a stamp from the Art by Marlene Little Jar stamp set with archival ink directly onto my page. I'm using archival ink because it's a permanent ink, and I'm using firm, even pressure to make sure I get a good stamped image onto my page. If you don't get a perfect image, it is okay because you can go back in with the paint pen later and add in those details. And I'm going to keep stamping this until I have my entire background covered. And now I can begin adding some color to these images. So I'm using Dina Wickley Media scribble sticks and a wet paintbrush. You can see I've sprayed some water onto acrylic block. So I just have a small water palette. And I'm picking up the water with my paintbrush and then taking it directly to the scribble stick and transferring that pigment so I can begin painting with it. And I'm just going to keep going until I'm happy that I have an overall watercolored look. And then I'm doing a little bit less water, more pigment stick, more scribble stick so that I'm getting a darker color. So I'm adding my own shadows. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm happy with how this looks. And then I'm going to repeat those exact same steps for the rest of the glass jar covers. Then I'm using another color of scribble stick. This is Mineral. And I'm using a lot of water so that it's very, very light. I'm wanting to kind of create the look of glass. And glass sometimes does have a little bit of a bluish tint to it, so that is why I've chosen this. After everything is 100% dry, I'm using a white Posca paint pen to draw in some details on the fabric toppers of these jars. So I'm using the paint pen to not only outline the edge of the fabric where you can actually see the design has a spot for this, but also to add in the polka dots. Now I'm using another stamp from that exact same stamp set, and I'm loading it up with Dilutions Shimmer Paint. And I'm just stamping these hearts. There's two different sizes of hearts in all of the jars until they're 100% full. The paint colors and the names of everything I'm using are listed in the description below, so check that out for more information. Now I'm going in with a couple different colors of Dina Wickley Media paints, and I'm spreading them very thin around the outside of all my jars so that I'm starting to get a very light beige, kind of vintage toned color around all of these jars, just to add some shadowing around them. And I'm going to keep doing this around all of the jars to cover the entire background until I'm happy with it. And as you'll see in a second, all those layers have built up. And now I'm using a piece of Tim Holtz Ideology collage tissue. I've spread some gel medium on the back of it. And I did this on the side on my craft sheet because I don't want it to react with the scribble sticks. So I'm doing this very carefully because if scribble sticks get a lot of mediums mixed with it, they can reactivate. So I've put the medium on first, and then I'm very gingerly just kind of spreading this tissue out so it's smooth, but I'm not really aggravating anything to kind of get that pigment to reactivate. Now I have a couple pieces of Tim Holtz Ideology Remnant Rubs. This is from the Eccentric set, and I've actually cut out whole sections of it. And you can see I'm just rubbing little bits of it and then kind of ripping it off in a way because I don't want the transfer to be 100% perfect. And after all this is in place, I'm putting down some Dina Wickley Media Umber paint directly on my palette knife, and then I'm going to begin spreading it to kind of cover some areas and create a place where I can end up doing some collage. I'm using that mason jar stamp again, this time just on a separate sheet of mixed media cardstock. And I'm going to do the exact same coloring steps that I did for the background to do this on another mason jar so that I can layer it. And I've also stamped out a bunch of the hearts, as you can see, and I've cut these all out with my Fiskar micro snip scissors. And then I'm just going to glue them down onto my page. Today I'm working with Distress Collage Medium. It's a really good quality glue, but I'm taking care that I don't get it on the top of anywhere because I don't want it to activate that scribble stick, because as we know, wet mediums can reactivate pigment sticks. It's a semi-permanent product. You kind of have to play around with it depending how much pigment you put down. I'm also using the Distress Collage Medium on the backs of all these hearts, and I'm just kind of placing them along the bottom of the jars here, so it's sort of like, it's on the ground, kind of. That's what the brown is supposed to be. This is all abstract, but this is just what my mind is thinking. It's like along the ground. It's kind of spilled out of the jar. And now I'm using a quote from the Dina Wickley Media typed ledger paper. So I cut this quote out with my scissors, and it says, "If you aren't doing what you love, you're wasting your time," which I thought was appropriate for the hearts. So that was kind of my tie-in, hearts, hearts, love. And so I've taken this quote, it was one long strip, and I've cut it up into 3 sections. If you followed my videos, you know that I do this quite often when I'm working with quotes. I really like the number 3, so I like to cut up my quotes into 3 sections. You could also have just left it one long piece, but I think it looks more interesting when you have it staggered like this. So this is a technique that I often do. And then I'm going to go in once again with my white Posca paint pen and do all those same doodles that I did on the background to the top of this fabric piece on the mason jar. So little white polka dots and also outlining in white. And with that, my page is complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were inspired and got ideas to use in your own artwork. I would love to see what you're working on, so take a picture and post it on social media with hashtag ArtJournalJunction. If you enjoyed this video and got some ideas, please give us a thumbs up and also hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our mixed media and art journaling videos in the future.